We get a lot of these trail derailments every single year, but this is a bad one, right? This is a bad one. So before I get to Donald Trump's visit to Ohio, which I thought was a joke, and I'll explain why here coming up in just a few minutes, the Republicans out there are going after Pete Buttigieg, and they're going after the Joe Biden administration for this train derailment. They're making it political, right? And Pete Buttigieg has certainly taken a lot of bullets for the president. Buttigieg did acknowledge in a CBS News interview that he could have spoken a little bit sooner about how strongly he felt about this incident, right? But the effort by Fox News and Republicans to use the pain of this East Palestine community as a political weapon is both angering, but it's par for the course for Republicans, isn't it? One White House deputy press secretary said that these are bad faith attacks from Republicans who have been in lockstep with the rail lobby to unravel safety precautions for years. Guess what? He's right. Buttigieg supporters have accused Republicans of showing only newfound interest in rail safety. Why, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Trump's administration had shelved an Obama-era rule that would have required faster brakes on trains carrying highly flammable materials. Trump's DOT also ended regular rail safety audits of railroads and killed a pending rule requiring freight trains to have at least 2 crew members. Those are not opinions. Those are facts. You won't hear the Trump administration, the former Trump administration, talking about that. You won't hear people on Fox News talking about that, or OAN or Newsmax. Those are facts. Truth be told, there's more than 1,000 train derailments happening in the U.S. during any given year. And transportation secretaries, by the way, don't normally go to the scene. Everyone's saying, where's Pete Buttigieg? Why isn't he on the scene? Rail safety veteran Bob Laube said that in his 23 years at the NTSB and the Federal Railroad Administration, he remembers just one time when a secretary visited the site. Now, do I think it's good that Pete Buttigieg visits the site? Yes. Do I think it's good that he talks to members of the community? Yes. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But again, once in 23 years did the secretary ever go down there and check it out. So again, that's another right-wing talking point. So Donald Trump and his administration and Republicans are going after Pete Buttigieg and the Joe Biden administration, and I'm so glad that Pete Buttigieg addressed that. So I want to play you a little bit of this audio. This is Pete Buttigieg at the press conference, I believe it was earlier this morning, as he was asked about criticisms from the Trump administration on this train derailment. Have a listen to this exchange.
You mentioned a national political figure who's decided to get involved. It sounds like you're talking about Trump, and then you said, I need your help. How can he help?
Well, one thing he could do is express support for reversing the deregulation that happened on his watch. I heard him say he had nothing to do with it, even though it was in his administration. So if he had nothing to do with it, and they did it in his administration against his will, maybe he could come out and say that he supports us moving in a different direction. We're not afraid to own our policies when it comes to raising the bar on regulation. And I've got to think that him indicating that this is something that everybody, no matter how much you disagree on politics and presidential campaigns, can get behind. Higher fines, tougher regulations on safety, Congress untying our hands on braking rules, all the other things that go with that, that'd be a nice thing for him to do.
All right, so basically, that's Pete Buttigieg talking about what Trump did in his administration, blaming the Biden administration, right? Blaming Pete Buttigieg for what took place. But when you actually look at what went down during the Trump administration, it was the opposite of safety when it comes to these issues. The Obama era and what was put in place, Trump knocking that down, getting rid of these sorts of regulations. And then we have issues like what are taking place in Ohio right now. So I personally believe that we need to wait and see the investigation into this train derailment. We need to personally see, find out, and figure out what took place in Ohio, why it happened. But Listen, Pete Buttigieg is not having an easy time. You know, like I said, he's taking a lot of bullets for the president, for lack of a better term. Pete Buttigieg is not in a good mood these days. He's taking a lot of shots from a lot of people on the right. There's no question about that, right? There's no question about that. So he's taken flack because he had a little bit of a, I guess you could call it, interaction with a reporter. And a reporter caught him coming out of dinner with his husband. And Pete Buttigieg was not in a good mood. Now, I'm going to criticize Pete Buttigieg for this interaction because I don't think he handled it very correctly. This is a reporter basically stalking Pete Buttigieg, right? She catches him coming out of dinner with his husband. It's private time. And she starts unloading questions to him about this train derailment situation. Have a listen to this interaction, and then we'll talk about it.
What do you have to say? Hi, how are you?
Good.
Jenny Chair with the Daily Caller News Foundation. What do you have to say to the folks in Ohio, East Palestine, who are suffering right now?
Well, I'd refer you to about a dozen interviews I've given today, and if you'd like to arrange a conversation, make sure to reach out to our press office, but I'm not going to have that conversation with you. Just walking
You don't have a message for them?
I do, and I shared it with the press many times today. I'd refer you to those comments.
Would you mind sharing it with us?
No, I'm going to refer you to the comments that I made to the press because right now I'm taking some personal time and I'm walking down the street.
Are you going down there?
What's that?
Are you going down there at all?
Yeah, I am.
When are you going?
I'll share that when I'm ready.
Okay,
Not talking
thank
on the
you.
street. Can I get a photo?
Okay. So you have this reporter who is stalking Pete Buttigieg. Now, she's on public property, so she's not breaking any laws. I want to be very clear on that. Pete Buttigieg doesn't want to answer any of her questions, and he says why. He says, refer to the dozen interviews I've done earlier today. And then after saying that, she continues to ask questions. So a little bit inappropriate on her part. I think it's okay if you ask that first question, but if he doesn't want to engage and he doesn't want to talk about it, then stop asking him questions. So in my opinion, she was very unprofessional. That's number one. Number two, I don't like the way Pete Buttigieg handled it. Here's why. Answer her question once, or hey, don't answer it at all. You're walking to your car. You know, you see a lot of these celebrities that are being stalked in public. They don't answer members of the media, like these TMZ reporters that are stalking these celebrities. They just walk to their car and they ignore them. Pete Buttigieg could have done that, and I would have had no problem with it. But if you want to answer it like you did the first time. I did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of members of the media today. I'll refer you to that. I'm on personal time right now, so I'll refer you to that. Please talk to my press office. That's it, and then don't answer any more questions. But he starts to get a little snippy, and then at the end of the interview, this is where I have a problem. He asked to take a picture with her, not to post on social media and say, hey, how's it going? He did that as an intimidation factor. She wasn't breaking the law. She wasn't doing anything wrong. Some people could argue it was a little stalkish and a little unprofessional, and I would agree with that. But, you know, she puts her camera in his face and keeps asking him questions, even after he said he's on personal time. Yeah, I think you can say that at a minimum, it was unprofessional, right? She was being a little bit unprofessional. And I also understand that Buttigieg is snippy these days. It's been a tough week for him. He's been doing a lot of interviews, a lot of press conferences. He's been taking a lot of attacks from idiots on the right that clearly don't understand that Donald Trump is part of the problem when it comes to regulation and these types of, tragic situations. And they're blaming it all on Pete Buttigieg, which is absurd, and the Biden administration. That's also absurd. Oh, it happened under Joe Biden. First of all, we don't even know why the train derailment situation happened. It's still under investigation, number one. And number two, if you look on the side of safety precautions, Obama did a hell of a much better job than Donald Trump did, and the proof is in the pudding. But Pete Buttigieg could have handled that situation a lot better. There's no question about that, right? There's no question about that. So Donald Trump decides to take a trip to Ohio. Why? Well, his supporters will tell you that Donald Trump took the trip because he cares about the people of Ohio, and he's just there to help people. Now, full disclosure, here's what Donald Trump did when he spent the day there in Ohio. He gave them Trump water. What is Trump water? It's another one of Donald Trump's failed businesses that ended back in 2010. So you have these Trump bottled waters that have been sitting in a shed for like 14, 13 years. If you ask anybody that knows anything about water, they'll tell you bottled water you should not be drinking bottled water that's at least 3 years old. So that's a safety precaution right there. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the beans that he brought with him and some supplies that he brought with him, it was around $10,000. He used everything, including this trip, including the jet he took, to go to Ohio on campaign funds. So nothing was out of his pocket. That's number one. Number two, he used Trump water, another ploy to help Donald Trump in his 2024 election bid. Then what does he do? He goes to a local McDonald's. He goes to a local McDonald's and he starts throwing out MAGA hats to people. There's a video of this. He throws Trump MAGA hats to people. Let me ask you all a question. You see any Democrats doing stuff like that? Like when there's a tragedy, they throw out... Would you ever see Joe Biden throwing out Biden 2024 hats? Of course not. Because it's beneath him. And it's beneath any politician, especially after a tragedy. He went in there and he started tossing MAGA hats around to people in McDonald's. It reminded me when tragedy struck on the other side of the world. Do you remember when he was tossing out paper towels to people like he was Steph Curry? When you care about a community, you don't make it about yourself. You help others. Oh, Brian, what are you talking about? He provided Trump water to them. He bought a few people some meals at McDonald's. You don't make it about yourself. And he did that in his speech. And I want to play you a little clip and a little bit of an analysis from Donald Trump's speech in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, this is fact-checked, and if you don't believe me, you can go back and you can watch the whole speech. I'm going to give you a few excerpts of the speech. Less than 17% of the speech, he was talking about the people of Palestine and the tragedy there. Less than 17%. About 85% of the time, he was talking about himself, promoting Trump water, complaining about the EU taking credit for FEMA. And when asked about his deregulations when he was president, he called it fake news. Here's some excerpts of Donald Trump's speech yesterday in Ohio.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor to be here. It's an incredible place and some incredible supporters and people that have worked with us for a long time. And we've been here for them. And even a few days ago, we had this wonderful village and rocked the lives of people throughout this area long beyond. We've been getting our news from the real news and from the fake news. And the fake news we even believed in this case because they back. When I announced that I was coming, they changed their tune. It was an amazing phenomena. The mayor and I were discussing. And they said that we can't let this happen. That was a big change of pace. Amazing in every way. And we had tremendous luck with the tornadoes. A little bit, I don't know if you remember when Ohio State wasn't going to be playing football for another season. They were going to sit back and watch with the China virus or COVID, whatever you want to call it. Community needs now are not excuses and all of the other things you've been hearing, but answer. Now at $117 billion, and as you probably know, Europe, when you add it all up, is at about $10 billion. That's a big difference, wouldn't you say? In thousands of bottles of water, Trump water, actually, most of it. Some of it we had to go to a much lesser quality water. Sandy Pensler and his son, Jonathan Pensler, from Cortex in Michigan for donating thousands of. And again, I want to thank Senator Vance, and I want to ask JD to come up and say a few words, and then Mayor Conaway, and Marty Grimm will come up and finish it off. Thank you all very much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. And then he goes over to McDonald's and tosses MAGA hats out, going into his diatribe against the Biden administration for the response to the disaster. He refused to answer the question about deregulation and what he and his administration members did. Instead, he launched into his typical attack on fake news as well as on the Biden administration, claiming that both were seeking to blame him for the disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. Donald Trump went to Ohio for one reason and one reason only: a campaign trip to make it about himself and make himself look good in an attempt to make the Biden administration look bad in his attempt again, which I believe will be a failed attempt, to be the next president of the United States in 2024. Donald Trump didn't go to Ohio because he cares about people like you or me or the people of Ohio. He didn't go there because he really cared about this issue and he wants fair regulation, because his actions speak louder than words. He deregulated what Obama put in place. He went to Ohio as a ploy for himself to gain more recognition from idiots out there that don't understand why he was really there. They're, again, suckers. You are a sucker if you believe that Donald Trump went over to Ohio for the reason to make things better and to help people. He claims that he is a billionaire. If he is a billionaire, then why don't you donate $100,000 of your own money then? If you're a so-called billionaire like you claim you are. Don't give them Trump water and don't toss your MAGA hats at McDonald's, because that's what he did yesterday. Tossing out MAGA hats. How despicable and how disgusting when people are suffering out there. He had no answers or solutions to the problem. And then when asked about the deregulation, he called it fake news, which it's not. All you got to do is look it up. What Obama implemented and put in place and what Donald Trump took away. That's exactly what Donald Trump did in his administration. And people are saying, well, where's Joe Biden? Why didn't Joe Biden show up to this train derailment? First of all, if you look at the history of train derailments in this country, the president never shows up. That's number one. Number two, do you have any idea the conversations that Joe Biden has had with the mayor and with the governor? Because they have had conversations. And those in Joe Biden's administration, they have talked to local officials there, not about campaign rallies or handing out MAGA hats or praising yourself for buying somebody lunch at McDonald's. They have actually had real conversations about how to help the people there and what they need. Not about Trump water. It's not what they talked about. Causes of this train derailment and how to help people there. Not showing up and saying, oh, look at me, I gave out some Trump water and I handed out some MAGA hats and I'm going to now blame the Biden administration for everything so I can make myself look good, so maybe I can get some more votes here and maybe win the 2024 election. But if I lose, I'm just going to say the Democrats cheated again and maybe we'll have another insurrection, because that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's setting yourself up for it. First, he's got to get past Ron DeSantis. I'm not even sure that's going to happen. How could some of you people out there be so gullible? How could you people out there? Donald Trump doesn't do anything unless it benefits Donald Trump. Period. And if you don't believe that, and if you think Donald Trump was out there for the goodness of his heart, then I'd love to hear from you now. I'm going to give out the phone number. If you agree with me, great. Tell me why you agree with me, and that's wonderful. But if you disagree with me, and you think Donald Trump went out to Ohio out of the goodness of his heart because he wanted to help people, I want to hear from you right now. Those of you on social media, those of you listening live on KSHP, here's the number. I challenge you to call me. 702-221-7283. Again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, now is the time to call. 702-221-7283. I believe we have Scott on the line, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Brian, how's it going? Hopefully the snow in Vegas is not hitting you guys too hard.
No, the snow pretty much disappeared in about 30 seconds, so we're good. What do you think about this, Scott?
Well, here's the thing, Brian. Oh, by the way, I have subscribed to your YouTube channel, and I have followed you on TikTok. If you want to give me a follow on TikTok or not.
Sure.
My username on there is SharksFan39 because I live out in California. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely will do that, my friend. Thank you. Do you agree with me that Donald Trump made this trip to Ohio to not benefit anybody else but himself?
Oh, absolutely, 100%, Brian. And if I may, I'd like to share a fact with you. Now, me personally, I did vote for Biden in 2020, but I'm not, one of those, hardcore Biden. Oh yeah, he's so great. He's one of the best presidents ever. But I would like to share a fact with you about this whole thing in Ohio.
Okay.
And what I'd like you to do is, I want you to fact check me on this, and if I get something wrong, let me know, and I will say, okay, I was wrong.
Okay.
So, and this is for all, the Trump kissers that are out there. Now, one thing I noticed when I was watching you on TikTok yesterday or last night was, so a lot of the comments that kept popping up was, oh, well, where's Biden? Why isn't he in Ohio? Why is he all the way in Ukraine? How come he's not in Ohio yet? Well, here's the fact for all you Trump kissers out there. The reason why Biden is not in Ohio yet is because Governor Mike DeWine has not declared a state of emergency
Thank you.
yet.
Thank you. For those of you that are having trouble hearing on social media, what the caller just said is that the governor of Ohio has not declared a state of emergency. If you don't declare a state of emergency, what would you like the Biden administration doing? That is 100. Now, why do you think the governor hasn't declared that?
Honestly, Brian, I wish I could answer that. I don't have an answer for it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And here's something else. And if anyone wants to fact check me with what I'm about to say next, feel free. If you want to call me a liar, fine. But you can go here on YouTube, because I got your live stream up as well, but you can check on YouTube. You can go and look at the video. And I'm going to quote Mike DeWine right now. And he said, quote, I have talked to President Biden, but I have not called him back.
Yeah.
Those were Mike. You can fact check me on this,
You're
Brian.
right. No, you're
fact check
right.
me all you want.
You're right. You're right. Listen, you are 100% correct. And what you just said makes total valid sense, sir. And it's, unfortunately for a lot of these MAGA supporters out there, they can't spell the word fact. I talked about this on social media last night. And I'm glad that there are people out there like you who do your actual real research. It's funny, all these MAGAs out there, they'll say, somebody told me on social media yesterday, Scott, Joe Biden is a child molester. He gropes young girls. And I said, okay.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that so many times.
So my response is, can you please show me actual proof or evidence? And he goes, do your research. Yeah. Okay. So in other words, that means I'm a liar and I listen to Fox News and I'm a buffoon. Anyway, Scott, I got to get to some other calls, my friend, but I got to tell you, I'm glad there are people like you out there, sir. And I will absolutely follow you on social media. And I appreciate you calling in so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And just real quick, I have to tell you this real quick. Yesterday, I got it into with a woman on TikTok, and I'm still involved with her now.
Oh, no.
She tried to pass off an internet journal called NEO, which is the New Eastern Outlook, which is a Russian propaganda site, and she tried to use that as a credible source.
Well, you know what?
Me.
That's probably the same source that Tucker Carlson uses, so that doesn't surprise me, Scott. My friend, I appreciate it. Good to hear from you. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. 702-221-7283. I apologize for some of the people on TikTok and social media that don't hear the caller. I don't know why that's happening, but I can hear the caller just fine. I guess I only care about myself, so me and Donald Trump have that in common. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Who do we got next? We got Robert joining me next on the line. Robert, who is watching on TikTok. Robert, what's going on, man?
Hey, this is attacking the ignorance from last night, my man.
Attacking the ignorance.
You told me to call.
Yes, sir. I think you and I probably agree then, correct?
We agree.
Yeah.
Donald Trump handed out more Trump hats than he did water. Okay? And I thought that the Trump water ended like in 2010. So that's really stale water he's going to be given to the people of Ohio.
Yeah, he gave them water that's 13 years old from another failed company that he tried to run, which also went under the tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing is this. Donald Trump removed some of the regulations in regards to the rail system. if you remember correctly. Some
Yep.
of Obama's policies.
Yep.
Also, the thing is, Donald Trump likes to remove regulations from things, kind of like you remember Deepwater Horizon?
I do. Yep.
Okay, he removed one of Barack Obama's policies in regards to the oil rigs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he did that too. So now when a disaster happens on the oil rigs, it's due to the fact that Donald Trump removed some of the regulations. See, Donald Trump wants to remove
But he
regulations.
called that. But wait a second. Well, wait a second.
Yep.
Donald Trump called that fake news. Should we believe him?
Of course. He's never lied.
Yeah, I mean, he was asked that in a press
also-
conference in Ohio yesterday, and he deflected, and he only said it was fake news, even though it's on the public record. It's on the record.
Yeah.
Are MAGA supporters this dumb? I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. I want to help those people. I want to try to educate them. But sometimes, you can't help people when they don't want to be helped, right, in all facets of life. And he goes out there,
exactly.
right, as you know. He goes out there to Ohio. He hands out his 13-year-old Trump water. He buys a few people some meals at McDonald's. By the way, if you're a billionaire, you probably should take people out to a better place than McDonald's. All due respect to
You would
McDonald's.
think.
They have great French fries. But he's tossing out these MAGA hats to people. Can you imagine? You're in McDonald's. You're going through tough times there in that city. You don't have clean water, or maybe at a time you didn't have clean water. You're concerned. And all you have to show for Donald Trump's visit is a MAGA hat. I mean, that would piss me off. Wouldn't that piss you off?
Yeah, but then if you remember correctly, Trump did have a football team or a basketball team at the White House, and what did he have? A McDonald's spread. Remember?
Yes, I do remember that. He did that for a football team, too. I remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very classy.
So the thing is that, so see, Trump is, he always says, oh, I had nothing to do with that. I have no responsibility to that. It was not me who did that. It's always, he's denying everything that happens if he has any part of a bad situation. But if I'm not mistaken, I just heard a Periscope, a TikTok, where one of the people were talking about how many train wrecks in Trump's 4 years.
Yeah.
There was like 1,600 train wrecks and 40 deaths.
I would say there were more train wrecks. Did you watch any of Donald Trump's press conferences? Did you watch his coronavirus press conferences? Those were train wrecks as well. All of his marriages have been.
I'm talking physical train
Oh,
wrecks.
I know. I'm just making a joke. But all of his marriages have been train wrecks. His businesses, many of his businesses have been train wrecks. They've gone down the toilet. Now he's in all these indictments that are going to be coming down the pike when it comes to Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. And a lot of people think Donald Trump is going to be indicted as well. His entire life has been a train wreck. He was handed a $500 million company from his clan dad. And he took that $500 million company and refuses to, for years to show his tax returns. The man is not a billionaire. He's loaned, he's been borrowed a lot of money from a lot of people, including right there in New York City. His entire life has been a train wreck, as far as I'm concerned. And listen, if there are still people out there that support the train wreck, the orange turd himself, Donald Trump, then God bless him, man. Because I got to tell you, at this point, I can't debate those people anymore. I try to.
Well, don't forget, he just signed a deal for $4 billion, from what I understand, with Saudi Arabia to build buildings and golf courses. And this is from the Saudi prince who he covered his butt for the murder and the dismemberment of a reporter.
Correct. And don't you find it interesting, sir, that Jared Kushner had a $2 billion deal with the Saudis, working that deal out when all this stuff was going on?
Yeah, he went to Saudi Arabia the last couple of days of Trump's presidency.
Yeah. Don't you find that interesting that when you talk to Republicans today, they want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. They want to talk about critical race theory. But let's not talk about Jared Kushner's $2 billion deals with the Saudi government. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about someone who's never been a politician before. Let's talk about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, good to hear from you, my friend. I go ahead.
Hey,
last word. Go ahead.
That like I said, last night when I was talking to you, the stuff that we talked about, I've got on my bio on my Attacking the Ignorance in TikTok. So everything we've talked about is right there for people to read and see and hear, just like with you. You have a bigger platform, which is great. We need more people like you out there telling the truth so some of these people can get an education, because you're not getting one from Donald Trump because the university's closed.
It's interesting, and I'll close on this. There are people out there that'll say that I have TDS, which would be Trump derangement syndrome. And my response to them, and maybe you could use this one, and you can say I gave it to you. Tell them they have TFS. Do you know what TFS is?
No.
Trump fellatio syndrome. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Give that.
I got one better for you.
Okay.
Trump derangement syndrome. Right.
Yep.
Who's wearing his hats, his clothes, flying his flags, have his face on Sylvester Stallone's body in their room?
Yeah.
That's Trump derangement syndrome.
I agree. I think it's mental illness. Brother, I appreciate your call. Thanks for calling in, and call back anytime, okay?
Thank you. I'll be listening.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Number to call, by the way, if you want. It's very sad to me that so many people, they're agreeing with me. I'd like to talk to some people that disagree with me, but usually those people are too cowardly to have a debate with me. But the phone line's open. 702-221-7283. Again, that number if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-7283. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about Donald Trump's trip to Ohio. Yeah, it's a terrible situation, right? Train derailment, animals dying. It's not a situation that anybody wants. So what's been happening since then? Donald Trump did what he normally does, taking advantage of a tragedy, trying to make it political, attacking the Biden administration for this trail derangement when we still don't know what the cause of it was. But here's what we do know. We know that Obama put policy in place to attempt to put safety precautions in place to help prevent train derailments from happening. The Trump administration went against those regulations and got rid of it. But Republicans don't want to talk about that. I don't even know whether those regulations that were put in place from Barack Obama would have prevented this accident from happening. But here's what I do know. If you want to blame the Joe Biden administration, you don't think they've done enough to prevent these types of accidents from happening, then you better also have a problem with Donald Trump and the deregulations that he put in place. That's all I'm simply saying here. It's very simple. If you have a problem with the Biden administration, then you better have had a problem with the Trump administration. But listen, people are not fair. Some of you people out there are going to paint Donald Trump to be some sort of hero because he showed up to Ohio and threw out some MAGA bottles. Donald Trump is some sort of hero because he claims to be a billionaire and he bought some workers some McDonald's food and then tossed out some MAGA hats. Somehow that makes him a hero. You know what real heroes do? They show up, they donate their own money, not campaign contributions, which is the 10,000 or so that Trump put up with his MAGA water. They show up and they don't want people to thank him or her. You show up to help people, not by buying them a $6 or $7 lunch at McDonald's, not by throwing MAGA hats in the air. You go because you care. You don't make it about politics. Hey, I'm here to help. Here are the things I'm going to do to help all of you. Tell me what else you need. You don't make it political. You don't talk and lie, by the way, about what you did or didn't do during your administration, because that's exactly what Donald Trump did do. You don't make it about yourself. Gosh, you don't hand out MAGA hats. So insensitive to the people out there in Ohio who are obviously struggling. If you want to be a part of the show, give me a call. It's a live radio show. We're also live on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. But we also are doing a live radio show here, so I'm actually taking phone calls. I'm going to give out the number now. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, whether it be a debate, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. I'm going to give out the number, which is there we go, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, now's the time to call. Let me give out that number again. 702-221-SAVE is the number to call if you'd like to be a part of the conversation. All right, let's get right back to the phone lines. Let's go to Carl. Carl, what's happening, brother?
Oh, hey, buddy. Listen, I reached a real quick thing. You forgot. You remember when he was, I think he was president then at the time, there was a big hurricane, and I forget what country it was, and he went down there, and he was campaigning. No, it was before he was elected. He was campaigning, and he threw out, people were starving. They lost all electricity. They had no food. They had nothing. Their homes were destroyed, and he threw out like towels or shirts or T-shirts, I think, with his picture on them to people. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember he was throwing out paper towels as some sort of hero.
Paper
so
towels and paper rolls, rolls of paper towels.
Yeah, I do.
That's the kind of humane man he is.
Yeah, throwing out paper towels to people. You know, one thing I will say about Joe Biden is that he actually talks to people. He listens to people. He cares. Joe Biden's certainly not perfect, and I have my qualms with some of the things he does and says, but Joe Biden is an empathetic man, and nobody can take that away from him, Carl, right?
Well, yeah, Trump has absolutely no empathy in his body except for himself. He's completely only thinking of himself, even his family. It doesn't matter who, and what was good for him, no matter what happens. And that's the kind of personality he has.
Carl, you're not going to hear.
It's a shame.
You're not going to hear a disagreement from me, brother. And yes, the video of him tossing paper towels out to people during a tragedy and now tossing out his MAGA hat speaks volumes as to who Trump is. Carl, it's always good to hear from you, my friend.
Okay.
And I appreciate the call, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Who do we got next here? Okay, I believe we have Alpha who's calling, who's watching us live on TikTok. Alpha, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Alpha. All right, so what's going on, my friend?
I just can't believe the bullshit I'm hearing.
Okay, so first of all, before we disconnect you, this is live radio. Something tells me you're a MAGA supporter, which is totally okay. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, but this is live radio. There are FCC regulations, and you cannot swear. As I bring you back up, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, but you cannot swear, okay?
Gotcha.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So you keep calling it a tragedy, but where's Biden?
Where's Biden? Okay, so I will respond to that, as I just said. Sir, do you know how many train derailments they've been in maybe the last 22 years?
Oh, a few. Yeah.
Quite a few. Okay, can you name me how many times the president showed up to those train derailments? You can't. Okay,
Nope.
I'll assume that your silence is you don't know. Let me ask you another question. Transportation Secretary. In the last 25 years, how many times has a transportation secretary showed up to a train derailment? I'm going to assume your silence is you don't know the answer to that question either, so I'll answer it for you. Once. Once in 25 years has a transportation secretary, let alone a president, showed up to a train derailment. So would you like to ask me another question?
What's the difference between this train derailment and the other ones?
What's the difference between this train derailment and the others? Well, sir, right in front of me right now, I don't have specifics to every single train derailment that has happened in the last 25 years. I can tell you how many people died in this train derailment. I don't have the answer to that. I don't think anybody lost their life. If somebody did, you can explain that to me. But here's what I do know. In the last 25 years, one transportation secretary has showed up. So my question to you is, under the Trump administration, we had a plethora of train derailments. It does happen. Were you complaining about Trump not showing up to those and calling into radio shows? I'll assume that your silence to that is no, you haven't. So I think we should probably move on from that statement you made, and I'm happy to answer any more of your questions, sir. Go ahead. All right, sir. Thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate that. Another MAGA. Ladies and gentlemen, another MAGA. MAGA alert, ladies and gentlemen. MAGA just called up, and MAGA just said, why hasn't Biden showed up to this Trump derailment? And then when I gave him facts, and I told him how many times has a president shown up to a train derailment, silence. I asked him how many times Secretary of Transportation has showed up to a train derailment, silence, because he doesn't know, because he's not educated. I actually am on this. Thank you for the call. Who do we have next? 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Why hasn't Biden showed up to this train derailment situation? And then when I ask him how many times has a president shown up to a train derailment situation, pure silence, because he has no idea what he's talking about. Welcome to MAGA country, ladies and gentlemen. I gave him multiple opportunities to respond, and pure silence. Holy smokes. 702-221-7283. Again, that number to call, 702-221-7283. Let's go to John. John, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian. I'm sure Mark typed that previous caller's name in as A-L-P-H-A, but you seriously mispronounced it. It's pronounced cuck.
Yeah.
Not alpha. Yeah. It's cuck.
Correct.
Listen, Alpha, I'll bet you lunch at Nobu, buddy. You're missing one of your front teeth. You want to bet, pal? Send a picture into Brian. If you got all your choppers in the front, I'll buy you lunch at Nobu.
Hey, my teeth aren't very good either, so, be careful there, John. Come on.
Look, hey, Brian, as a star progressive radio host, you've got to get up to speed on the Dominion, the material that was released in the Dominion lawsuit. It's crystal clear that Fox News knows that they're lying and they don't care. And
all right, listen,
I
might talk about Dominions a little bit later, and I promise you we'll get into deeper dive into that next week. But what do you think about Trump's visit to Ohio?
Look, have you ever been in a relationship that's just gone totally sour and you both wind up, you're a liar, no, you're a liar? Trump is it's so easy to read that when he says fake news, that's what Fox News is. And the text in the depositions released in the Dominion case prove it beyond all doubt.
Yeah.
That Fox is totally a fake, bogus, hate-mongering, fear-mongering organization, and the only thing they care about is the price of the Fox stock. And here's the sick part of it all. Okay, Fox is a whore organization. They're just following the money. And if they try to dial down the fear and the hate, their viewers, like Cuck, who just called earlier, Cuck, their viewership will go down. So those alpha Cuck folks, they're the problem. And it's the time to be polite with them is long past. You must beat them down, you must shame them, and you must humiliate them. Because Fox News is just chasing eyeballs and advertising revenue.
John,
that's it. And alpha is the problem.
John, you are not going to get an argument from me, my friend. It's always good to hear from you. I got to get to some other callers, my friend, but thank you so much as always.
Keep killing it, Brian.
We're on the right side of history. Thanks, John. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. I believe Eric is next, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to Eric. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Hi, Eric. What's going on?
Yeah, I was just wondering where you get your facts from, like particularly
Sure.
Biden and his location right now. Where do you think Biden's
Where am I
right
getting
now?
my facts on Biden and his location right now? Is that a serious question?
Yeah, that's a serious question.
Well,
because
yeah,
you
I'm.
act like Trump
Listen,
don't let me off.
So listen, I'm trying to answer your question.
Yeah,
so I'm in cahoots with. No, sir, may I answer your question, or are you just going to talk over me?
So let somebody talk that is in.
Sir, you just asked me a question. This is how a radio show works. You call in. You ask me a question, and then you give the opportunity for the host to answer it. Would you like to do that or not?
Answer.
Okay, then be quiet. Shut up and let me answer. Okay?
Answer.
Pot him down, please, Mark, because this is another MAGA who doesn't understand how to have a conversation with somebody. Thank you, Mark. You're asking me right now if I know the exact location of where Joe Biden is. Let me explain to you how the Secret Service works. You see, Biden's locations are given to members of the media when he holds a press conference. But the Biden administration and the Secret Service don't tell every regular day people, even people like you, where exactly the location of Joe Biden is at any given time. I don't know why you would ask me a question like that because it makes absolutely no sense. So why don't you actually ask me a question that is relevant to the conversation, and I will pod you up and bring you back up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's totally relevant because it's public information. You can
No,
look
it's
it
not.
up on
Pot him down
fact
again. Another MAGA that doesn't know what he's talking about. It is not public information, you fool. The Secret Service works with the President of the United States, and the Secret Service does not give out the location of the President every second of every day to the public. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and it is a foolish conversation. And I'm sorry, again, where in the history of this country does the Secret Service give out the position of the President of the United States and where exactly he is at every second at any given moment? That is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. And have a nice day. We're going to move on to the next caller. Wow, that was a really weird conversation. I'm going to be willing to guess that guy is a staunch Donald Trump supporter. I mean, hey, I could be wrong, but that's the guy that wants to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, and that's the guy that believes that the general public knows where the President of the United States is at any given moment. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. Do we have others on the line? Who do we got next? Al? 702-221-7283. By the way, everybody doesn't even know where I am at every given time of the moment of the day, let alone the President of the United States. All right, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Al. Al, what's going on, man? Al, are you there? Do we have Al on the line? Al? Al, are you with us or are you sleeping? Al, you're live on the radio. All right. Do we have somebody else? Was that okay? I don't know. I don't know, Al, if we're having some technical difficulties. You are welcome to call back, my friend. 702-221-7283. Here I am talking about Donald Trump's visit to Ohio, giving out actual facts of how many times a president has visited a scene of a train derailment. How many times the transportation secretary visited the scene of a train derailment. We have people on the record that are saying in their 23, 24 years in doing this, they only know that the transportation secretary showed up once. Those are facts. And yet we have people that say, what happened? Why didn't Biden show up to this train derailment? These are the same people that are saying, how come Biden's not at the border? The MAGA callers that are calling in are making that point. And then when I give them facts about how many times a president, Republican or Democrat, has shown up to a train derailment, pure silence on their part because they don't know. And then I have a guy calling up saying, how do you know where the President of the United States is? Which is another very strange point to make because the Secret Service doesn't always give out the information of where the president is all the time. That's actual fact. That's not opinion. That's not an opinion. That is fact. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. All right, let's go to our next caller. Let's go to Robert. Robert is next. Hello, Robert.
Yeah, first of all, your Ohio stuff, you're just asked backwards about everything.
Okay, so tell me, what am I
is not a curse. Ass is not a curse, you gaslighter. You're a gaslighter. That's all you do all day.
Okay, so let's have a conversation.
It's gaslight.
Okay.
Gaslight.
Okay,
gaslight.
So you can call me things, but let's have a conversation. Would you like to have a conversation?
Okay, I'm talking about what part of our economy is
let's have
better?
A conversation and stop calling me a
What part of our economy is better? I heard you before.
Sir, one thing at a time. We're not talking about the economy right now. You just said I'm ass backwards about the train derailment situation. So let's start there. What have I said that is ass backwards?
What does Donald Trump have to do with anything? Our problem. We had no problems under Donald Trump.
Sir, you just said I was ass backwards
under Donald
about
Trump,
talking about Ohio.
I know you want to gaslight me.
Sir,
go ahead.
I'm not gaslighting you. I'm asking you a question. I'm going off of your statement. You said I'm ass backwards on what's taking place in Ohio. Now I'm asking you to be specific. When you claim that I am, quote, ass backwards, what have I said specifically that is, quote, ass backwards? Go.
All right, there's been 1,000 train derailments. That's not the issue in this country. It's an issue in Ohio. But I heard you before, and you talk about the economy and how it's so
not
great
talking
now.
About the
how
economy.
could you vote
not
for
talking about the economy. Pot him down. See, that's what these MAGAs do. He just said I'm ass backwards about the train derailment story. I have now asked him 3 times to be specific. What have I said? Now I'm going to ask him for a fourth time. If you're not going to answer me for a fourth time, then there's no point in having this conversation. You made the statement that I am ass backwards when it comes to the train derailment situation. I am now asking you for a fourth time. Nothing to do with the economy. What have I said specifically that is ass backwards about what has taken place in Ohio? I'm now asking you for a fourth time. Go.
I'm going to be truthful, and I've only listened to this conversation for 15 minutes because
you're the one who made the statement that I was ass backwards. I don't care if you were listening for 5 seconds. I'm now asking you.
When you talk about sports,
I'm not talking about sports. I'm not talking about the economy. I'm now asking you for a sixth time. Quote, you said I was ass backwards in talking about the train derailment in Ohio. I'm now asking you for a sixth time. What did I say specifically?
Okay. Joe Biden has lied about every single.
All right, get him off. Okay, there's another MAGA who can't answer the question. Then he says Biden has lied about everything. You see what these MAGAs do? There's a perfect example. The guy just called into this show and he just said I was ass backwards about what I said about the Ohio derailment. I asked him 6 times to be specific with me. 6 times I asked him, what specifically did I say that was ass backwards? Couldn't answer.